Okay, I think we can get started. So today we want to talk about the change management component of Construe. So one of the motivations behind developing Construe came from what we've learned from working on open source projects. So to give you a bit of background, Linux is one of the oldest, most popular, most widely used open source software development projects, and at some point it became so hard to manage that the creators of Linux came up with their own version control system called Git. And so the idea is that you have all these people in all these different parts of the world working together on one project, just how we do it with building design, and it becomes just very difficult to manage all the changes and to understand what is the current version of the software or what is the latest revision of a model, making sure that everybody has the latest information. And so what Git did is, what we currently often do typically is to upload an entire file to an FTP and then share it with somebody that way. And if for some reason, this requires the storage to be very big, because every single time, even if we only changed 5 beams in our Revit model with 2,000 beams, we have to upload 2,000 beams. So we're uploading huge amounts of data and downloading huge amounts of data. But also it becomes very difficult to understand what exactly has changed since the last time you uploaded something. The fact that only 5 beams in an element in a model of 2,000 beams have changed, becomes just kind of hard to communicate. And so when we developed Construe, we looked at how versioning works for the popular software versioning platforms, and we mimicked that. So instead of uploading, again in the same example, instead of uploading 2,000 elements every single time, if only 5 elements have changed, we only synchronize 5 elements with the server. And then also what happens is that every time you upload to Construe, you essentially create a new instance of the model, and that can be compared to previous instances. And Max is going to show what this means today. So Max, do you want to take over?
Thank you, Jonatan, for the introduction. So everyone, I hope you can see my screen, at least the audience view tells me so, and we're going to get started today by using Construe. We're going to upload some versions, and then we are going to invite Jonatan to it, and he can actually explore the changes and create a change report. And this, you can even invite other people to the change report, so you can, for example, send a change report to your project manager or people like that. So to get started in Construe, I'm going to create a new model. I'm going to call it Etabs upload, and going to webinar demo, and I'm going to click create model. Now this model is being created in Construe, and it tells me this model has no versions yet because I didn't upload anything from my desktop. So there's also a little video pointing you to an upload from Revit. Today we're going to upload using Etabs. In Etabs, after installing Construe, I prepared a little model here. You will find Construe in the Tools menu bar. So if you click Tools, you will find Construe here, and if you click it, it will run Construe. Now I have to sign in with the same account, and going to sign in with my credentials, and now I can see 2 models in here. One of them is the demo that we always provide, the sample model, and there's the Etabs upload for the webinar. I'm going to select this one to upload to it, and since there's nothing in my model yet, there's no data there, so I can only upload to it. I'm going to hit update Construe, and this will be my first upload, and I'm going to say this is great, I want to upload my model. I'm going to say update Construe. And now for the first thing that Construe does, it's comparing the model that we have on the server versus the model we have in Etabs, and it's going to tell us what will be added to that model. It's going to tell me columns, beams, releases, floors, nodes, and restraints, and a lot of other elements. And here are also some elements that are not being uploaded because they're actually currently filtered out. or not implemented. In this case, cables, grids, openings, components, foundations are not implemented in this plugin, but some of them are also filtered. And today I'm going to also explain to you what filtering means, because in our example here that we see, we have this steel structure, and I want to send to Jonatan only the steel structure. I don't actually care about the slabs because he doesn't want to look at the slabs. So in Construe, there's an easy way to solve this problem. So in the review dialog, you will see on the right-hand side this filter icon. And there's also a filter in the drop-down. This says this is the recommended upload from Etabs. So what I can do here is I can manipulate that. I can jump to the filter settings, and this will take me online to my model, and it will actually highlight the Etabs filters that I'm going to change. So in here, I can show the Construe default filters, and I will see there's a recommended upload from Etabs, and it has this little direction icon. It tells me like Etabs to Construe. What I'm going to do is going to clone this filter, because that's the default one and I cannot edit it. I'm going to say from Etabs to Construe. I'm going to call it my Etabs filter, and say filtering slabs, for example. And as a template, I'm going to use the recommended template, so that's fine. And I'm going to say this is also my new default filter. I'm going to say create. And now I have a new filter in here. It takes a bit to reload sometimes. And we have to, sometimes we have to reload at this point, but this is not a big problem. And here we see my Etabs filter, filtering slabs. Now I'm going to hit edit to change this filter. So here I can now see all element types that Construe supports. So we were talking about floors, remember? So I'm going to go to floors, I'm going to say ignore this element type. So this means when I'm uploading it, this will be entirely ignored from Etabs. I'm going to say, select maybe some other elements too, because floors and maybe, let's say, restraints, releases, and nodes are being ignored too. I'm going to click Save, and now this filter was successfully saved. Now I can go back to my desktop application in Etabs, and here now nothing changed immediately because I have to reload those filters. So I'm going to click Reload, and this just reloads my filters. Takes a second because it's also rerunning the staging, and I have to deselect a different filter. So in this case I see my Etabs filter in the list. I select it, and now you see there's something different in here. So now we see the floors, and actually here it has been filtered out, and also nodes, restraints, and releases. So that's why there's a different icon here. Those are icons for elements that are not supported by this plugin, and those are icons for elements that have been filtered. So now I see that no floors will be uploaded, and that's what I want to have. Now I'm going to hit Finish Update, and this version will be committed to the server. So this is my first version that I created. Now I can go to View Model and close the other tabs, and I will see the first upload that I just committed to the server. So now I can see this is the structure, and it actually contains only the steel structure and no slabs. That's exactly what I wanted to have. So now we're going to commit some more versions to make this model, and we're going to change some other things as well. So now, for example, we can add also, sorry, my zoom is a bit broken here. You might see the same weird things as I do. And now we're going to add some elements here as well. So I'm going to draw some new columns and beams, and going to draw them on all the stories. And I'm going to, let's say, draw some new columns in here in the structure. We're going to add a little tower to it, and we're going to add some more beams as well. So now we added a little new tower with steel structure, and I'm going to click Tools again and run Construe a second time, and again I'm going to select the Etabs upload model. Now I have two options because my model contains data, so there's also a download to Etabs option, but I'm going to select Update Construe. I'm going to say added a new structure. I'm going to say Update Construe. So now Construe remembers our filter setting that we chose before, and it says my Etabs filter is still active, which is fine. So we don't want to upload any floors in case there are some. Now I'm going to select Finish Update and wait a second and click View Model again. Now Construe reloads the page and I can see I added 32 elements. Now I can rotate this and I will see this new structure that has been added to my model. So as Jonatan explained to you earlier, this is now actually not that we save the entire state of this model, we actually only save the addition to this model. So we save the delta. And this is why Construe is really efficient and lightweight, because now we added only this structure and the entire model is being built because we know that this was the version before. So Construe actually builds your model from the information it has throughout the time. So now we added this feature to it and we're going to change something else. Let's go back to Etabs. Now in Etabs, for example, I can change some of my sections that I have here of those elements. I'm going to change some section properties to W10 by 15, for example. And I'm going to do that also for the other beams on the other side, say 10 by 15, and I'm going to upload those changes to the server. Again, I'm going to Tools, Construe, select Update, Etabs Upload Model. I'm going to hit Update Construe. I'm going to say changed sections of small tower. Update Construe, and Construe again builds the difference report and checks what is going to change, and it's going to tell us 2 elements have been modified, and I can see those 2 beams have been modified. They had a change in the profile, and I can go to by status, and I will also see 2 updated elements, and I can see they changed their profile. That's correct. So now I'm going to hit Finish Update and click again View Model. Now, I will see when Construe renders that my new updates are there. So there are 2 updates that I actually changed, and those are the 2 beams I just manipulated. So in order to build a nice change report, I'm going to change one more time some more elements. So we're going to have a change report that is a bit larger than only what we just committed, so we can build a nicer change report. So I'm going to select some of the elements in here. I have a bit of a delay on my computer here. So, and I'm going to change also to some other section size and go to Tools, Construe, and Upload again. You see it's always the same procedure. We're going to hit Update, say changed section again, hit Update Construe. And Construe again is going to compare the 2 models against each other, and it's going to tell me that one beam that I actually only selected has been changed, which is fine. I'm going to say Finish Update and View Model. So now I see this final change in here. This is one change on my model, and I can see it in the structure. This element has been changed. But now the most important part is that I'm going to invite Jonatan to my model right now. So in my model, I can always add more people to it. So you can currently see that we have the history of 4, which is the history in my model, and I can see all those versions in the timeline. And I see a People tab. Now, if I hit the People tab, I see there's one person invited to it, which is actually me, myself. I'm the owner of this one. And I can invite another user by clicking Invite a User. So in this case, I can directly enter the email address, and this is demo@construe.com. And I'm going to say this person gets admin privileges, so he can actually change and invite also other people. We also have different settings here that you can actually choose different roles for people, and one of them is admin, which allows you to actually control the whole model, upload to it, download it, and also add new people. Then there's the modeler role that actually allows you to update the model, so you can upload to it, but you cannot invite more people to it. And then there's viewer, which can only download the model. And another feature that Jonatan will explain you also on the reports is the limited one. There you can only see reports that have been assigned to you. Now I'm going to give him admin privileges so he can actually do what he wants with that model. I'm going to say invite user. Now I see demo@construe has been added to your model. and Jonatan will have received an email. I will now hand over to Jonatan. So,
1 second. Can you see my screen now?
yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so this, I'm now in my account. I'm using the, let me hide this. Sorry, I'm working on a single screen today. Okay, there we go. So let me just refresh. So so Max just shared this model with me, and let's just say I'm a new engineer on the team, and this project has been going on for some time now, and I just want to understand sort of what happened, like what decisions were made along the process. So I can look at the model history, and I can see basically all the steps when people uploaded a change. And I think this is actually, if we really would like to encourage our users to make this into a good practice of committing significant changes every single time, so that you can actually, you actually have a log. So in 5 years from now, if for some reason you want to understand what happened in May of 2017, you can just come here and you can see exactly what happened in May of 2017 by kind of going back to that version of the model. Another thing that also comes along with that is the fact that you can actually revert. So if for some reason you changed your mind, so let's just say the developer told you, okay, yeah, you have more money to invest, and you can add like 3 stories, and then a year later they change their mind, and you need to, or a few months later they change their mind, and you need to go back to an earlier version of this particular model. You can just revert, and you can revert the current version back to what you had in the past. This doesn't mean that the newest version gets deleted. It just means that this gets now made the newest version, so that the next time you download something into one of your applications, you get this state of the model and not this state of the model. So anyway, I wanted to look at the, I wanted to show you how the comparison settings work. So by default, when I enter I can just kind of select which version I want to go on here. If I change the view by and I say, okay, instead of, I want to look at changes, so view by change, here I can precisely understand what has changed, and I think I should look at maybe the difference from today's latest version to maybe the earliest version, so I see a few more changes. Here we can see now, for example, everything that has been added is in green, and everything that is unchanged is in gray. And so if I only wanted to change, if I only want to display a certain change type, I could, for example, say, only show me everything that has been added, and I can just hide anything that's unchanged from the view. So this basically allows me to explore changes in a certain way. So again, there's a settings panel here, and if you select that, you can explore the settings in a certain way. The other thing that we're going to cover in a later webinar. So today, since everything that Max did was based on the same Construe model, so he started with the model and he made changes to the same model, we can use, we can, like, every element already has a Construe ID that can be compared by, but we will show you, I believe in 2 weeks from now, how you can also take 2 different models and run comparison and see what has been added or modified or deleted between 2 different models, and in which case you may have to use the comparison by geometry and not by ID. So again, you can see right now, even if, since the geometry is identical, it'll just know that this beam from version 1 and this beam from version 2 are in fact the same beam, and they haven't changed. So that's why it colors it the same way.
There's one thing that that this might be confusing is that, sorry, I forgot that when I uploaded, because now you see everything in green right now as being added, because that's actually the structure that we added in the first place. If you would now go in your comparison, if you go one version ahead, like not to the first upload but the next one, you see the manipulations on that tower, because all of that. So if you compare across an entire model, and you would start at the very first version and you manipulated an element afterwards, it would be realized as being added, because added is in this case the first step that happened.
Yes, thank you. And so, and the next thing that I wanted to show, well, what did you actually change? So, so now I can see, okay, 3 elements have been changed, and I can select it, and then when I select one element, I get all the typical attributes. So if this beam were created in Etabs and then were manipulated in Revit, I would have all the attributes from both Etabs and Revit being listed here. But then under the attributes changes section, you can see exactly how it was changed. So it used to be a W27, and now it's a W10 section. The other thing that we can do is, if we go back to the change view and we say, we only want to see changes that have been done on geometry and not on profiles. I actually don't think there were any, but basically you can color your model, or you can build your model based on what kind of changes occurred. So if I'm not interested in profile changes, I can just filter them out from my change view, and subsequently I don't see any changes. So if I only care about geometry changes, then I see, okay, nothing has been changed, good, then we're good to go. So basically you can decide what makes a change. Like if you want to go all the way and say, even if somebody changed the name of an element, I want to show that, which again in our demo we didn't, then even name changes would be highlighted here. So so it's up to you to define what constitutes a change when you review the model, and I think this is also really nice that, yeah, again, you can just quickly see, okay, I'm interested to see if the material was changed, and therefore you can just run the comparison by material change. Anyway, the next thing I want to show is also to create change reports. So let's just say that I need my collaborator to know that profiles or materials have changed between, let's just say, the latest version and the second version. Because the last time I changed, I told them, the last time I sent them a change report was 3 versions ago, and now I'm changing the one again. So what I want to do now is I want to create a change report with these settings here. And so I can just say create change report, and by default it's called it takes the model name and it just says status update, today's date. So I think that's fine. It selects the 2 versions that I had just selected, like my current version and the second version that we uploaded. And then I can write a description, and I can say we changed the profile of 3 beams. So you can essentially describe to the person what you've worked on since the last change report that you submitted to them. Again, it takes over all the settings that we just explored. So yes, I'm interested in profile and material changes. I'm not interested in geometry changes. And then you create the report. Again, you have to reload. We'll fix that soon, but for the time being, you sometimes still have to reload when you make a change. So now I see my report here. If I enter it, you can see that currently I'm the only person on it, but now if I invite, what is the name of, actually, whatever, I will just send it to my personal email address. And so now I invited that person, and so this person now has read permissions to the report. And if I go one level up and I look at the people settings, you can see that now this person was added with a limited view. And this means they can't actually access the model. So if I were to log in, if J as a J Schumacher were to log in, in Revit, for example, were to log into Construe, they would not see the model. So there's no way for them to download the model, but they can log into the Construe web app and they can see the change report. In fact, I think I'm just going to do that now. I'm just going to log in as just to show you what the change report looks like. So here you see once I go and enter the model, I don't actually see any of the model history. All I see is just the list of change reports. So I'm gonna enter the change report, and then I don't actually have access to any of the other versions that have been created. So all I can really see is exactly what you wanted me to see. But of course, if I need to, for some reason, explore this and look at other changes as well, or look at, I don't want to see unchanged elements, for example, then I can still do that here. So I can see exactly where the elements are that have been changed. So so the change report feature is very new, and it's, as you can tell, we don't yet create, for example, an Excel or so, like an itemized list of all the changes. We will add that, but we just wanted to get this out there really for feedback, and because somebody requested it for a project that they're working on, and we wanted to have something working for them as quickly as possible. So this is the beginning of the change report feature. It's free to share change reports, so you can send this to 100 people. The other thing actually that's quite nice is the next time that you create a change report, it will automatically compare it to the previous time that you submitted the change report. So if you are on some schedule where once a week you send an updated report to the entire team, but you've maybe created already 20 versions from your Revit or Etabs model in the process since the last time you created a report. But anyway, the next time I send a report, it will remember which version was last shared in a report, and it will pre-select that and compare that to today's version. So yeah, so I think I'm going to switch back to Max, but to see if we missed anything. But I think this is it for today's demo, unless Max, you have more.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, I think that's what we wanted to show you guys. And now we're open for questions because we're really keen on knowing what you think about it. And yeah, if you ever use that feature at all, it's also interesting for us. So ask us as many questions as you can. And I also have to check because I think there are already some questions. I just have to make my screen a bit bigger. Ah, okay, right, yeah. Okay, so the first question, in filter, what are the single letter bubbles to the right-hand side? So should I show that on my screen maybe? I can quickly show that. So if I go back to my model and I'm going to my filter settings, going to my organization. By the way, if you want to go there manually, it's quite simple. You go to your account and then you go to webinar, basically to your org. You click your org or organization, and then you go to the settings, and in settings there's a filters tab, and if you click that you will find your filter. And in here, when I go to edit filter, you see these bubbles here. That's what you're talking about. So actually those are indicating what features are turned off or on. This is just giving you a high-level overview. So for example, here you see M for material is checked, P for profile is checked, N for name is not checked, and G for geometry is checked. So this just gives you a quick overview about what's going to happen. And we think this is really helpful because it tells like, oh yeah, areas are coming in with all their properties, but all the others, for example, don't necessarily come in with their names. So then we have some other questions.
There were some questions about reverting. Can you just show what happens when you press the revert button?
Yeah.
And then also if you can go later on, if you change your mind, and if you said, actually now we can add those 3 stories again that we just removed, like can you revert to a newer version as well, not just to an older version?
So for example here, let's say we're going to revert to the very first version because we don't like what happened here, right? This thing here is not what we wanted. So there's a revert button that tells you to revert to this version. So I'm going to click that one, and it's going to prompt me revert it to first upload. I'm going to click revert. And actually what's happening is now that there's a new version being created. So in Construe, nothing gets deleted. So there's just now a history stream, if we scroll up to that, and we'll see a few seconds ago, I reverted to the first upload. And this is the state of the model. And then I see that this is actually what happened in between. So we don't delete anything, and you can always see those traces and you know what's going on. So now we know this is the model state. I'm going to click it quickly, and now I see this is the model, right? And now I'm going back to the history and say, no, actually this was what I wanted to do, but maybe not changing the beam over there in this, the lower beams. Let's say we only wanted to add this structure and the section profiles were fine. Then we can click here and go to revert, say reverted, added the new structure, and click revert. And now again, what happens? Of course, there's a new version being created that's added. It says revert to added new structure. So now this is the new model state, and this is, now let's see that. So this is the model state, and we've reverted the changes of the section sizes, but we actually get back to our new structure. So then there were also some other questions. Sorry, this is always a bit tricky because this screen is tiny. Okay. Let's say I have many concrete beams and I change a custom shared parameter in Revit inside of a beam, for example, rebar. Would Construe report that? And yes, Construe would report also attribute changes. So in this case, it would. You can also see that Jonatan showed that to you. If you go to the change reports here and you go to your options on the right-hand side, you will also see that there is an option for attributes. And actually, this is if attributes change. So now in our case, we didn't demonstrate that, but if you would change an attribute, let's say rebar or whatever custom attribute you're uploading, it would then be highlighted in orange in the element, and it will show you that this attribute changed. So then we have some more questions. Let me check. We have had some issues with duplication of elements after changing, for example, vertical elevation. We assumed that unique IDs would prevent this. Do you have any suggestion to help to prevent this? Yes, if you upload, this more sounds like there's an issue somewhere, but the unique IDs, of course, have to prevent that, and then it's rather there's a bug somewhere, but usually that should work without any trouble, that even if you move an element, that shouldn't affect it at all. So the only thing that could happen is if you would, for example, download your Revit model into two different Revits. Let's say you have an empty Revit file on one computer and an empty Revit file on the other computer, and you would download the model into both of them. The Revit IDs would always be set to the latest one you downloaded to. So in this case, they wouldn't be the same anymore. So if you work with Revit, for example, multiple instances, make sure you also work with a central model, because then this wouldn't happen at all. If a model is created in Revit 2016, can we use Construe to revert the model to an earlier version of Revit? That's a very great question. Yes, you can from that point on that we have plugins. So, for example, we have Revit 2016, 17, and 18. So if you get a model, for example, in 18 and you want to use it in 16, you can use Construe for that. That's actually a nice feature that allows you to go backwards, because we know that Autodesk doesn't allow you to do that. But actually you can do that with Construe, but only to 2016, because that's the first plugin that we developed. So you cannot go back further than that. And then we have another question. Can I search in the history of my model between range of dates? No, sadly, you cannot do that currently. But also Jonatan mentioned that we're going to add a feature that allows you to export these changes to Excel, and then you can actually download them, and then you can also export them by range of date. And I think because we're engineers, and actually it's much easier for us to handle all of that stuff in Excel. You can just then download it and filter it down in Excel by dates. So are there any more questions coming in?
There was a suggestion, the change report should be used for addendums when compared to the latest issuance. I think that's actually a really good call that, you know, even if you have a certain model sharing process in place already, or a certain, you know, let's just say at the end of every sorry, I'm blanking the word. You know, every time that you sorry, my God.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for words. But essentially, you know, whatever process you have in place already today, when you submit reports to your collaborators, you can also just use this as an additional submittal. So you don't have to fully rely on it, but I think it's just really good practice. If you just were to upload whatever you last submitted at, let's just say, DD 30%, and what you're submitting now at DD 50% DD, if you just had those two versions in Construe, you could, as I showed you, in a matter of seconds, create a change report and share it with the team, and now it would be very easy for them to understand what you've worked on. So the other thing that we should actually mention here, we didn't go there today, but so this is only for creating change reports, which, as we said, they can't be downloaded back into an actual software. But if you invite somebody as a collaborator, like Max invited me as a collaborator, instead of so if I wanted to see what has changed directly inside of my software, inside of my Etabs or Revit or Tekla or whichever program I'm working in, essentially every time that we make a change or an addition in a Construe to an element, we assign that element to a group, or in Revit it would be a selection set. So if I were to download the latest model into Revit, there would be a selection set for modified elements and a selection set for added elements. So I can see what has been added since the last time that I synchronized. So if for some reason, if I don't want to use the web interface to look at changes, but if I want to use Revit or Etabs or SAP or Tekla, whichever program to do that, I can also do that by using the groups and selection sets.
We have another question coming in. What would the process be for decoupling, say, elevation only? Slabs, beams in Etabs and Revit are modeled differently to reflect the different assumptions for BIM versus analysis. Could you show how you would create a filter which decouples that justification? You could move a beam in plan, but not sync the elevation. So on upload, you cannot do that, because we say, like, on upload, we're always uploading the element as it is, which we think is fine. But what you're talking about is a really, really nice feature that we have that is called merging models that actually allows you to do that. We're not covering that today, but this is a really great feature, because there you can actually, on merging, if you see that this is basically our merge menu, and you can merge from one model into another one. So what you can actually do there is, for example, if you have an analysis model that has different geometry than the physical model in Revit, you can merge those changes from one model into the other, but only, for example, the geometry. And this is actually, I guess, what you're looking for. The only thing that we don't have, so we say we merge the geometry of the element, but we don't have a feature that says, like, only merge X and Y geometries instead of Z. But this is something we could certainly add. So, but currently, that's when you merge. We will show that in another webinar, and it's going to be really exciting for you guys, because then you can actually say, give me only the geometry of that model into my Revit model, for example. Someone says there's lost audio. I don't know if...
I can still hear you, but I don't know if that's good enough.
Okay. We don't know. Guys, give us a heads up if you can. Audio is fine. Cool, great, thanks. Okay, any more questions? Good,
so I think we can stop here. yeah, please, first of all, thank you for your time. Please let us know if there are still any open questions. I know we went through the filters very quickly. Actually, Max, while your screen is still up, can you just show the YouTube, the videos, like where
yeah, right, that's a good point.
So we do have actually pretty good documentation set up, but yeah, so Max will just show you where to find all this.
So we
emails and such.
We have a documentation that you find easily in our app that you can actually click here, and it says documentation, and in here is like there's our getting started guide, and then some information about supported elements and supported platforms we do, tutorials and FAQ. So most of that you will find in tutorials, and this will take you to our Zendesk help, and here you can find all our tutorials and things in here, and you will also find information about filters, for example. And here we see there's, in the knowledge base, we have an article for filtering. And if we click that, it actually shows you how to filter data on up or download, how to create those filters, and how to use the review dialog here. And at the very end, there's also a video that shows you how to filter. In this case, we're uploading from SAP to Construe, and it's also showing how to filter data. But in here, in this article, you will find all the things we discussed today. So then, thank you guys, if there are no more questions, and I hope you will join us on the next webinar, and yeah, have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye. How do you turn this off?